Hi-de-ho, this is Tony with the Jeep Talk Show, and just like you, I'm listening to the 10-Minute Off-Road Podcast with Nikki G.
Episode 41, Fairweather Friends. Shut up, sit down, grab a comfy chair. The 10-Minute Off-Road Podcast is about to begin. Hello and welcome to the 10-Minute Off-Road Podcast. I'm your host, Nikki G. I'm here to inform, delight, entertain, and make you salivate about all things off-road for the next 10 minutes or so. Why 10 minutes? Well, it's faster than water can boil. Yeah, I know they're getting weak. Before we get started tonight, let's talk about the Bills. You can listen to the 10-Minute Off-Road Podcast on the Podbean, sometimes, on Anchor, which is where this fine podcast and many more are hosted. You can hear us on Spotify, as well as Google Play and Apple Podcasts, and then a couple of other little crappy things that I don't even know what they are. So, but chances are if you're listening to this, you already know all that. You can contact the 10-Minute Off-Road Podcast through all the fancy social media outlets, such as Facebook, Instagram, the Twitter, YouTube. Did I say Facebook already? But you will never find us on TikTok. TikTok is the tool of the devil. You got something to say, you can contact the 10-Minute Off-Road Podcast at 10-Minute Off-Road. You know, I don't even know what my email is right now. I think it's 1 minute, 10 minute off-road at gmail.com. Or you can just message us through Facebook, or leave a comment on our wonderful page, which never gets updated, or contact us on Twitter and the Gram, or you can try skywriting. Smoke signals work sometimes, and or hieroglyphics. Yeah, I don't even know if I said that right. There's a bunch of words that begin with H that I just can't seem to pronounce, like hospital. But with all that behind us now, let's get to the awesome content of the podcast. And I want to talk about weather and how it affects us. I always go wheeling, rain or shine, when it's really hot and sunny out. In the dead heat of the summertime, I don't seem to enjoy it as much. And then in the wintertime, when it's ice cold, yeah, I don't enjoy it as much. Although getting out and enjoying the woods is always fun, no matter what the weather. But what I really, really prefer is on a warm summer day with a very light sprinkle or shower. The temperature is great. The rain keeps the dust down and keeps the temperature cool. And it's just, the trails aren't wet, sloppy, slick. And that's what I prefer. Although with that being said, I've been out in the woods in downpours when there's 4 inches of that beautiful North Carolina peanut butter mud. And I've been wheeling when it's 110 degrees and dry as heck, and you feel like if you just rub 2 sticks together, you're going to start a forest fire. So in short, the weather doesn't affect me. I go wheeling no matter what. Except when we were going to do a trail called Hurricane Creek up here, and it has a couple of water crossings that I would say moderate, not very deep, but I planned to go on this trail, and I bailed out twice because we had several days of downpours each time, and the water crossings I knew would be deeper and faster, and so I stayed away from them. And so that brings me to the topic of fair weather friends. I have friends that we make plans to go wheeling, and if there's heavy rain in the forecast, I can always count on them to say, no, we'll do it another day. I'll say there's nothing wrong with that. If you don't enjoy the mud, then don't go wheeling in the mud. There's other things you can do. Heck, stay home and enjoy the family. But with that being said, don't be afraid of the mud. Don't be afraid of the weather. Go out and enjoy it. Get out of your comfort zone, so to speak. There's a fine line on your limits, too. You don't want to go out on the mountainside when there's flash flood warnings. Although in Uwharrie, I don't think there's a chance of flash floods. There's only one trail I could think of that's really, really close to the water, and that's Dutch John. It's you go down a hill, and there's a creek at the bottom, and then you go up the hill. So I imagine that might get washed out, and even on hot days, that trail is always wet. So that might get hairy or scary in the rain, but don't put yourself in a dangerous position. Know your terrain, get a lay of the land. Besides that, go out and enjoy it. Enjoy the woods, rain or shine. The trails, easy trails become very difficult when they're wet. Difficult trails get even more difficult when they're wet. It's a lot of fun. So if you're getting used and bored with the trail, try it when it's raining. And if you have friends that only go wheeling when the weather's perfect, try to encourage them to try the trails in different weather conditions, but don't pressure them because they know their limitations better than anybody. Encourage them to explore the woods in different scenarios, but don't pressure them into getting into a situation that nobody wants to be in. Now, if you're camping and it's going to be a downpour, that's a different story. I do not enjoy camping in the rain. Light rain, yes. Heavy downpour. No matter what you do to your tent, it leaks. I've never been in a tent yet that leaks. You put a rain fly over it, it leaks. You put a tarp over your rain fly over your tent, and it leaks. You get a rain cloud within 50 miles from your campsite, and somehow your tent still leaks. When I was younger, I put up what I had to. Now that I'm older, I don't want to sleep in a soaking wet sleeping bag. I don't think anybody really does, and I really don't want to put up with it. So yeah, when there's heavy storms, I bail out on the camping. That makes me a fair weather friend. So if you too have fair weather friends, don't mock them, don't accost them, encourage them to come out and play in the rain. But don't pressure them too bad because they know their limits. You don't want to pressure them into having a bad time, and that in general just makes everybody else have a bad time. Although sometimes when you have somebody that's really miserable and everybody else is not quite as miserable, it does make for some funny stories, but at somebody else's expense, and that's really not the wheeling you want to do. And if you don't like the weather in North Carolina, you just wait a minute and it'll change. In the spring and in the fall, we have all 4 seasons in one day. You can easily go from air conditioning to heat to air conditioning to heat again in your house. The summer makes camping miserable. The winter a little bit doable with some tent heaters, but those scare me, and that's another podcast altogether. All right, so I'd like to say that's about all the time we have, but I've got plenty of time. You're probably getting bored of listening to me drone on, so we're just gonna end it on a note like that. Until next time, this is Nikki G saying, wheel what you got and be happy.